was I going to get onto? The looming government shutdown that we hear about due to debt ceiling, budget issues. If Congress apparently doesn't provide funding for the fiscal year 2022 by midnight, September 30th, the federal government will face a shutdown. This is always misleading to me because we know essential employees will always be on the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know this turns out to basically be a paid vacation for those in the IRS and maybe the Postal Service and others who don't get to go to work until the lawmakers figure this out, and then they get back on the job and then they get a big fat check with their with back pay.
Well, it's give us what we want, or we're going to punish you. And we go through this whole song and dance when they know dang well that, I mean, I think the House already passed. You know, they'll him and they'll haul and they'll act, but the last thing the politicians will ever do is cut off their money to themselves. And
well, I mean, there is no way we could keep our current debt ceiling limits when they're trying to pass $6 billion in spending and infrastructure. It ain't going to happen.
Okay, though they will find a way to get it through, and our side will fold, and it will be some equity line somewhere, and somebody, you know, it's ridiculous. I think they already funded through, or at least the House bill funds them through December or something, and they'll kick the can a couple times, and then they'll pass it.
But
they have to.
But to sit there and say that the government will shut down and nothing will get done is absolute garbage. It's just pure playing to the fears of people who don't ask questions and don't know any better and just trust everything that they're told.
And why do we have non-essential government offices empty anyway? You know, like that to me, if you're taking one penny more than you have to from the taxpayer, is theft on top of theft. You know, and so if it's not essential, I'd say shut them down anyway. That's part of the problem is we have too many non-essential offices and government keeps growing. I mean, look at local government. Look at how much the city of Victoria has grown. And I'm not even getting into the merit of what they're doing or how they're doing it or anything like that. But look in little old conservative Victoria, how much our government has grown and how much it continues to grow and eat up things around it. Yeah. Dang it. You were right. You got me going. Well done, sir. Well done.
Richard King says if they don't pass the bill, then the Senate and the House should not get paid. That's their part of the job. If they don't do your job, you wouldn't get paid. Absolutely.
But, you know, I don't really think they worry about that salary too much because that salary is, you know, less than what a lot of people around here make, yet they all retire as millionaires with 4 or 5 houses. You know, I don't think that their congressional or House, I don't think that's what they're worried about. You know, they got to keep all those people that are going to give them the $1 million jobs when they get out happy.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And that's where a lot of our spending is, right? You know, and then we haven't even talked about this, but Joe Biden wants to basically keep tabs on any transaction over $600. I think currently, was it under the Patriot Act that they could basically had to report any $10,000 transaction, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
I think that came out under the Patriot Act. Well, now they want to basically keep tabs on anything that is $600 or more. That's you couldn't buy a TV without the government knowing it anymore.
No, and it really is to you know, again, enforce compliance. I think so they can scan for behavior that they don't like to enforce audits. And you know, I talked to my bank about this.
Or ways to tax.
Yeah, absolutely. They know everything about everything.
But here's the thing: if you do that, think of how much the government has to grow. You would need more IRS officials because now every $600 transaction or greater would have to be reported to the IRS. It's all a way to keep people working via the government. It's to grow the government and to grow people's reliance on the government, not self-reliance.
Mm-hmm. Because the banks won't be able to do this because the pressure it's going to put on them to have to do all this is they're going to require extra funding, and here comes the government to save them. And no, you're right. Always constant growth.
Good morning, Wade and Carter.
Adam.
Hey Adam, are you in your slarge today?
I'm just surprised you spit out the crowns long enough to call in.
Well, that was the other thing. He said he was going to start auditing people more, right? So yeah, there you go. But it's all to get people. I mean, you get a nice cushy $100,000 gig with the federal government. Are you going to go? Are you going to want to go bust your tail and hang your own shingle out there if you're a CPA?
No, why? You've got guaranteed income now, basically.
I mean, it's what it is.
No.
They're growing reliance on the government. So yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but it makes sense given the fact that they said they were going to audit people or more people. So I'll go take a look. Maybe I'll get a new job.
Yeah, no, man. Yeah, good to talk
Thanks,
to you.
Adam. Appreciate that. Yeah, so it's already starting. Well, here's one reason why I've always said that they will never ever shrink the government, and it doesn't matter who's in power. When you look at some of these federal agencies and the vast number of employees, you can run on smaller government. And President Trump was sort of smart when he said it, and in a different way. I'm going to drain the swamp. Didn't do it fast enough, didn't do it completely, but it was sort of his way of doing it. He didn't really cut positions. I think he basically froze expanding on these agencies. But if you tried to cut the IRS, yes, you might live up to your campaign promise, but because the government is so vastly overgrown, unemployment rises to a point that
you put people out of a
yeah,
job.
exactly. But
You
I
know
but I
what?
but I
I'm
cut
okay
the
with it.
government.
I'm okay with it.
But you know what? The political opposition is very okay with it because they would jump all over it because and neither side can admit that there's government waste and government bloat, and our government is too large, right?
Yep. Yeah, everybody's for being fiscal until it's time to cut their program.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to cut theirs. They want to cut somebody else's.
And even Michael Cloud, when he's on, he talks about a sunset clause provisions that review agencies that are no longer doing what they were supposed to do or have outlived their usefulness. They never seem to go away.
No. Well, and a lot of the problem too is I'll use the military for example. Is they always talk about military spending and how much it is wasted and all this stuff. Well, right as usual, it comes right back to the politicians because I'll use a quick little story of when I was stationed at Tinker. One of my additional duties when we weren't flying was I was a supply guy, so I had to go get the copier, the printer, the paper, all that kind of stuff. Well, I took my little government card and I went down to Office Depot and got my 10% off tax free and came back and proceeded to get yelled at and written up because I'm supposed to go buy, I can't go buy that $2 box of pens from Home Depot where it's the best fiscal deal and all that. Instead, I'm mandated to go to the school for the lighthouse, the deaf and the blind. And you literally, that's where you go and you pay $20 for a pen because, and it's great that a blind person made that. I'm not downing on that, but the government shouldn't be forcing the military to pay $20 for a pen when you can go spend 10 cents on it at Office Depot. But then they turn around, they blame the military. And it's like, well, you're making them buy the $200 hammer and then yelling at them for it when, once again, it's the politicians.
And how much government funding is going to the company making the pens?
Exactly. And then you look at it and it's like, well, it's like all this stuff. Well, we're going to put this ADA compliance or whatever. And it goes from being $100,000 building to now a $4 million building. And, I don't understand anybody how we're having to build $46 million buildings for people, like it's government. That's one word for it. Golly, get me going today.
Yeah, Kathleen Leininger says, "Did you see the latest Project Veritas release? Health and Human Services whistleblower on the impact and damage of the vaccine and the things that were being reported or aren't being reported." I think this was out of the Phoenix Indian Medical Hospital or something like that. I did see it. I think Facebook has banned it. I think you can see it on Twitter, other social media. It really didn't surprise me, Kathleen. I thought it was going to be something a lot more groundbreaking and eye-opening, but at least to me, I'd already heard some of this stuff. Like they just interrupted our signal.
Yeah, you're getting hot.
But to me, it wasn't anything groundbreaking. There's been a number of nurses and doctors that have made several similar claims, to no avail. We have the vaccine adverse reaction website for people to peruse.
Have you tried to do that though? So my wife did the last week or so. She's been curious
Not lately.
Trying to find the intel on vaccine related injuries or deaths or just, things, side effects, and just for curiosity's sake. And so she started trying to do this research. Well, what she has found is it's extremely difficult. She went to that site that you mentioned where they're supposed to put.
Yeah.
She had to sign. She had to click on 2 or 3 different waivers just to get in. Then she had to. There was an optional 15-minute video to see to how to pull. And she's like, after an hour of this, she's like, I have no idea what I'm. And she started reaching out to some of the medical people she knew to ask, is there a better way to do this? Is there a better? And everyone was like, no, it's purposely confusing. And like Tucker Carlson was showing a night or two ago where the Army, they showed a PowerPoint presentation that the Army was giving on COVID and vaccines, and said that there was only one, two, three incidences or vaccine things nationwide. That was it. There was only 3. Well, there's been hundreds and thousands of things and issues, but we're not told about that. And you're right. The video wasn't groundbreaking, and I didn't see anything that whatever. But in the sense, it's more evidence that we are not being told the full and complete truth. We're being told the narrative they want us to swallow. And again, I'm not arguing COVID. I'm not arguing does vaccine work or does it not work. No, I'm arguing that the government is muddying the waters again. And this is, everybody says it's not political. It's nothing but political. Like when you have the FDA people fighting with the White House over what gets released, and then the White House saying get your booster, and then the CDC or whoever saying no, don't get it, and then those people are gone all of a sudden, and hey, surprise, we're doing booster. Good Lord, like I don't even know what to say. Like don't tell me it's not political. It's nothing but politics, and I wish it wasn't.
It has been from day one.
It has been from day one.
We've never politicized a vaccine like this one was.
No, and it's I don't think it's done, and I think that's done on purpose to further just let us tear each other up and tear each other to shreds and
segregate.
Yeah,
divide and conquer is the big strategy, right?
But it's working. It's working, and if we don't fight to defend it, you will see that division in your offices. You will see it in your family. You will see it at your dinner table if we're not careful and protected.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Johnson comes out and says, well, if you get a booster shot from their one-shot COVID vaccine, it prevents 94% of moderate to severe cases in their trial. Very few, I think like 15 million of the 181 doses have been the Johnson & Johnson, but doesn't that defeat the purpose of why they developed a one-shot vaccine to begin with?
Yeah.
Now you've got to go get a second jab. So what's the point? You've now developed a 2-jab vaccine. You're no different.
Well, and I understand
what was out there.
I understand this is an evolving thing. I get that, but don't talk to me like I'm stupid about it. And what I mean by that is, when the vaccine came out, I don't care what they told you. They absolutely said it was to keep you from catching COVID. They absolutely 100% did. In fact, that's why they started calling them breakthrough cases when people got it. But then they moved the goalpost, and we never said it was not to catch COVID. We said it was just to keep the symptoms down. Stupid. Like nobody ever said that.
I grabbed a screenshot of it somewhere of either Pfizer or Moderna's letter of, I don't know what it is exactly, their application for their emergency use authorization. And in there, it says this vaccine is being developed as a potential preventative. Mm-hmm. They may not have been strong with the word, but it was there.
Right.
And it was being sold as that. Even Donald Trump, we get this vaccine, this thing will go away, right?
Yep.
And he was mocked for it. Well, now we know why, because they knew Donald Trump may have been a little bit pie in the sky thinking that we get the vaccine, it'll go away. Fauci and the Democrats knew that was never the case, but they lied to people because they knew that they could make it political.
Yep. And as long as and they moved the goalpost from, living with it to, well, now we have to have zero. But you'll never attain zero, but that keeps the goalpost constantly moving and the game never ends.
Exactly.
And so it's, I'm glad Project Veritas, like that's an organization I like. I
like their stuff. This one wasn't as, to me, they oversold it, overpromised, underdelivered a little bit with this one.
Right. No, and but at least they're doing journalism though. That's, you have all this profession right now, journalists, you ever wanted to make your name, and now's the time. You have the entire United States at your disposal to write and investigate it and be a reporter on, but instead everybody just gets in line and toes the political speaking points, and here we go.
Yeah, we're 18 months. John Davis says 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We're 18 months beyond 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah, but look at California, and they doubled down, and they were reading polls and stuff, and what was it like? Most of them thought Gavin Newsom was doing a great job with COVID, and they want more of that, and And Tiffany just sent me an article this morning and said like half of the vaccinated people or something have no intentions of spending holidays with their unvaccinated family and all that. I don't understand that. Like
No.
and I'm not even trying to challenge anybody, but I keep being told that I'm a threat to the unvaccinated, but nobody can tell me why. And why are you segregating us? Why are you keeping, the only difference between a vaccinated and unvaccinated person, my understanding is it's going to make one person's hopefully less sick. And that's it. Like,
no, because the CDC, in a study out of Massachusetts, 74% of the cases were fully vaccinated people. And they found that the viral load in those vaccinated people was just as high in the unvaccinated. And that's exactly it. It will protect you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, 13,000 roughly side effects reported to the website the last time I looked out of 181 million doses. Not a huge number. I'm sorry, it's not. The data doesn't support that.
Well, and then even they keep going on and on about the case count, but the death rate, and from my understanding, is just as low, if not a little bit lower than it's been this whole time, and even with Delta, but
it is still higher than most communicable diseases.
Right. But we're also testing more for that than we are anything else on planet Earth, and so. I don't know. And again, I'm not challenging. Like, I'm not saying COVID's not real. I'm not saying the vaccines don't work. I'm just saying that the government involvement in all of it makes you scratch your head. And for anybody that seeks truth, it makes you hesitant to want to support. Like, I'm not opposed to the virus or to the vaccine. I'm just don't know if I'm being told the truth on anything, and I don't trust any of the sources. And the more they say shut up and trust me, the less I trust them.
Well, because. And to me, Pfizer and Moderna weren't going to even start to work on. None of these companies are going to work on this thing until President Trump pledged how many hundreds of millions for them to do it, right? And give them immunity from prosecution.
Well, I think overseas, it's a whole nother brand. There's a different brand that's in the mix with all of them that's working really well for people, but it's not here in the States because there wasn't a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical company behind it. And they keep talking about this wealth gap that's increasing between, how the government needs to step in. Well, who created this wealth gap? Who made us stay at home and shop online from all these big mega stores and said they could stay open while we had to close anyway?
Well, the only companies that don't seem to be impacted by the wealth gap are the ones that Democrats like. They don't care about Amazon and Jeff Bezos because he's one of them. They don't care about the pharmaceuticals because they're developing the vaccine that they've made a political weapon.
And any money they lose in these deals to politicians, they've already gained tenfold on the backside. And so the game continues.
Even Whoopi Goldberg recently realized, oops, the 1% is me. Now she's not so eager to tax the 1%ers because she falls into that 1% because the 1% isn't some number that we could never achieve.
Right.
Or even aspire to. It's actually fairly reachable for a lot more people than what you think. And certainly if you're a 2-income household, you could get there a lot sooner because it's something like $400,000 and some odd $1,000.
One, we're backwards. If you stay home, the government pays you. But if you go to work, you have to pay the government. And we de-incentivize hard work. Hey, you want to be a go-getter and you want to put in that overtime. Well, instead of, rewarding you and taxing your overtime at, say, half the tax or lower, we tax it at a higher percentage and we punish you for doing that. It's better to go get 2 jobs than it is to work overtime at your job because the government's going to come up and eat up your wealth. Or you make a next tax bracket. Hey, you get to pay more. We're going to cut you off at the knees, and now you made less, actually.
Yeah. No, the problem I've had from the get-go with this is there was never any effort or concerted large-scale effort to follow those who got COVID, like myself, and what our natural immunity might have done or might be doing, right?
Right.
None of that.
And why don't we have plans for people? I started thinking I heard Joe Rogan talking about his experience, and his guest said, well, did you just start calling people when you had it, or did you have a plan? He said, no, I had a plan in place that when it kicked off, I had all these in it. And it got me to think, that's not a bad idea. I like to be prepared. And so I kind of started trying to put together a plan. Well, you've had it, so you had to run it, but it wasn't that easy. I kind of started calling people and it was like, well, I can't give you really advice. You need to talk to your doctor. And well, I'm just asking, who do I call if I get to, well, talk to your doctor about that. Okay, well, can I go over here and go get that monocle, whatever? Well, you got to get a doctor. Well, what do we, we're talking all this stuff, but nobody knows what to do if they get it. Nobody knows who to actually call. They all just overrun the clinics here.
Part of the problem with that is the CDC guidelines have changed so much, and their guidance has changed so much and so frequently, it's hard to keep up.
Right. And I'm not blaming our local, I think David over at the health department does a great job. I like that guy. I think he's solid.
I think John McNeil's information is solid and honest and heartfelt.
Yep. But they're subject to the government, what they're being rolled out to it. And they're, they don't want to say too much because God forbid they give somebody an honest, not an honest opinion. I don't mean that, but they give an opinion and it changes, so for liability purposes, they're not wanting to say much, and I don't blame them. And yeah, I mean, I feel like we're just setting people up for failure. And it's like, we got this problem, we know it, but let's talk about, it's like taxes here. We'll talk about everything but lowering taxes. We'll bring in a consultant, we'll do this, but we're not going to lower taxes.
I mean, we talk about getting rid of Mark Milley. I don't think there's any greater faux pas committed by Anthony Fauci than when Sanjay Gupta, the esteemed doctor that CNN loves to go to, and on CNN, I think a couple Sundays ago, asked him, well, what do we know about natural immunity? And Dr. Fauci said, admittedly, nothing. We don't know enough about it. We've had 2 years of this, Fauci, and none of your funding and studies have gone to trying to figure that part out, because that information should be as important as, and those people should be grouped in with those who are vaccinated because they have a level of immunity.
But it destroys the narrative and the compliance factor and the uniform blanket, response.
Because and I get it. They don't want a bunch of people having chickenpox parties, right? And get everybody with COVID, and again, overrunning our healthcare system because the outcomes can be bad. Let's be honest. But we don't know where natural immunity is, and this Delta variant is obviously the worst of the bunch. It is afflicting younger, healthier people. Well, maybe not so much healthier, some, but younger people who have comorbidities are now getting it, who maybe weren't getting it the first couple times around. But this Mu variant they tried to scare you with, well, it became nothing because it's not very contagious.
But there will be something right behind it, though, and I don't even know anymore. I really don't. But
they treat us like we're dumb and that we can't handle the information and the truth.
A good way to keep people from doing this, people like me, is to keep censoring what I'm, keep censoring what I'm told, keep censoring, me answering questions, because the last thing I'm ever going to do is comply with that, ever. Even if you're right, it gets to a point where I don't care because you feel dirty. Even if you're telling me the truth, I no longer trust you, and there's no, and if I can't even do my own research because you censor it from me and don't allow me to hear different opinions, you're never going to have my trust. To
me, that's anti-scientific.
Yeah. I mean, we should be questioning everything. We should, and I would be okay with that if they came out and just said, hey, look, this is the best we got right now. We think this is, but we don't know. But this is what we think. I can respect that. I said, but don't tell me this is the end all be all. And if you question this, when I watched the president,
and when you were absolutely certain, and this was under the Trump watch, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, then it became 6 weeks, 8 weeks. States were being shut down for months at a time,
and they would never take that vaccine under Trump. And then it's a great state.
But they couldn't admit that. Oh, you know what? We thought it was going to be 2 weeks. It's not. Unfortunately, we may have to do this longer, or here's what we think we need to do. They couldn't do that. They just doubled down. Well, we know what's best for you.
Yeah. No, you don't. And I will not comply.
And those are the problems I think people have. It's not.
They're going to keep messing around. You're going to get a bunch of, guys like Adam and stuff like that. They come out and start kicking
and James Burr says ivermectin. And there's a province maybe we'll get into this tomorrow because we're out of time and we missed our final break. So I want to thank Motto Mortgage for their support of the Wade and Carter Show. If you have mortgage questions, you're looking at a refi or maybe cash out, give Terry Murray a call. Going through this process with her right now. She's been great. But so are a lot of other people. And right now, appraisers are stacked up.
Yep.
So they are. And for everybody, whether you're refining or buying a home or selling a home, the appraisers are busy. So that's probably going to be the longest part of the whole process. But get with Terry Murray, 541-5454 for all your mortgage needs. Wind services, generators, solar power. They can do wind power, backup generators for your home, electrical, plumbing, wind services, not just electrical anymore. They can do it all. And USA Concrete Coatings, turn that drab slab into something transformational. Give Charlie Garcia a call, 578-HOME. And Caleb will be back tomorrow. Brent will be back on Friday. I believe Mayor Bachneit's going to join us tomorrow, last half of the show, to kind of give us an update on what's going on with the city. Lots coming out in the last few weeks that I think will be, interesting to hear from the mayor on what's going on. This tax zone for downtown to help revitalization is an interesting concept. I'd like to learn more about that and a few other things in the works. So look forward to that conversation tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow as well.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, folks.
Drop all your.
Howdy, Ralph.
Good morning, my
Sorry
friend.
I ran late and I got a meeting I got to run to. Should have run so late.
Oh, yes, sir. Didn't even know you were still in there. Will do, my brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
They're making me, yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, brother.
Hey, brother.
He gets up early anyway.
Yes, sir. Really? I'm telling you, you're right on that. You are correct on that one. That's a huge week. You know that cannonball thing? I'm gonna go out and check that thing out. I think it'll be a neat. Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
I don't know. There's no order, so yeah. There is one for, I think that's an HD one. The only reason you need that is the mics don't go through the board, then you're just picking them up. And so if you get callers, can't hear them. I'd like to do a multi-camera setup so that if we had a guest in, I don't have to just focus one on them. You know, at least two cameras so that we're asking questions. More like a talk show, right? They can see us asking questions. You know, we're set up exactly. And you know, you leave stuff here, it'll get broken. Or people missing. And that's not the story, that's every station ever worked at. If the coffee cup out at some stations, it'll be gone. Well, the one thing, we have a lot of our crash blockers because the staff is still on the cars to begin with. Okay. I'm like, yeah, more is better. But for you, it is. You're probably gonna get everything. I don't know. I don't start me right now. We'll see y'all. Yes, sir. Let me see. Yes, sir.